early work, Marianne, often you use screens that have a reality in the world of the play.
Right.
If we can call
The
it
real name of that.
a reality.
Yes.
And then with Caden, his book piece called Click, was he used the camera, the little camera. And so for each of you, I'd just like to talk about this. Just like, do you think there's a good name for what it is now?
I tend to just lump it inside contemporary performance because
Yeah.
it's sort of, the way that the arts have moved, and so everything's so malleable now that
Right.
people work in different things, and it's just easier to say anything. I mean,
Right.
It's a live
Right.
event. It doesn't go on and it's recorded.
We're having our own multi-channel.
Yeah.
And you consider your probably like a media ensemble.
Well, I call it a performance and media ensemble. But that is, in many ways, because the designers and the design is like a performance. I mean, it's very, very present. It is a performer in the show and in the flow of the show. So it's, just a way to kind of acknowledge that as most as, what do you say? The technology is the diva of our performances.
I mean, but to talk about those multiple images and things like that, one of the reasons why we do that in the SOS with so many screens is because we try and we consider our audiences active editors. We're active editors all day. Everyone's always telling themselves creative, and so we try to engage with our audience, and and that causes a lot of problems with the theatrical audience. Oftentimes we're not using lights to sort of focus you. We're using lights to sort of multiply the audience. Like our technology and the sort of failure machines we make are meaning.
I've always been waiting since I was young. Now that I'm here watching people use it, because I feel like someone's standing behind me holding my
Yeah.
hand, preventing me from entering the space. And so that's a drag. And so what you really want is an audience member. Just to briefly drop in with Wes Adler's work with the
and then that's being filmed. You have this like, it's a analog layering. So sometimes we have 3 and 4 people being layered on top and backgrounds. That's being exposed.
And so you're exposing the source of the image, even though we can't, as I say, we're biologically programmed to look at something that is, you know, like the screen, like when the screen was behind us. And I wanted to ask, this is kind of an after question, but you also have to light the actors so often when people don't know what they're doing and suddenly just put video on a stage. This happens with Mac sometimes. There's just video going and there's the opera singer singing their heart out, but you can't help but watch some video of like waves on the shore instead of the person doing the live performance, whereas I see all 3 of you as people who are very, very aware of how do you connect and light the live performer with the image that you're going to project.
Yeah.
I just wonder if you could talk about that.
Well, a lot of that for us is that Jennifer Tipton has lit all of our shows. So she's, you know, this kind of world-renowned, you know, basically a lighting designer who works with dance and worked for many years in more traditional theater at Broadway. And, you know, and also has a lot of downtown cred. So, and in every single show, Jennifer and I get into a huge fight about whether the light is too bright on the people. Because, of course, I think it's too bright because it's washing out the video. But her you know, ideological stance is that the human on stage will be lit. So it's kind of in the end, you know, it's a good result, but it's like,
That's
it would
kind
be
of
so
great
great to have a different argument.
that you sort of insist on having that tension for yourself by
I do,
having
because,
Jennifer there, and that's healthy, right?
well, I really trust her. Ultimately, you know, we come out of it with something that I think, yeah, it's a good formula, but it's like, you know, I mean, it's hilarious. At this point, we know we're going to have the debate, but we still do. So, yeah.
It's a good point, too, though, who are wanting to add and doing what you call the multimedia, as Dan, was it Dan Levine's talk?
David Levine doing it.
Yeah, manifestos, yeah.
Anyway, the idea that you can just suddenly throw a camera on something and put some actors in front of it, or non-actors, and show whoops. Is that God telling us it's
Can you turn off the mic
I'm
system?
sorry. I was raised in a
It's
very
scaring us.
environment.
Our fight or flight responses are going
Anyway, point being, it's collaborative, and very few people have all the skills embodied in themselves to make a good film's play work, as opposed to what we call performance. I think that somebody is able to just stand up and do stuff without anything else really going on. Tony, I know, has gone the entire continuum, the whole spectrum, from just like you on stage to actually working in Hollywood films and everything in between.
Yeah, so it's fascinating the way it all balances, and really is a case-by-case point. There's also the question of how theater and the theatrical and the sense of being in a space with the performers can translate to a media experience. This is, for example, I want to reference Bill Viola. One of the reasons why Bill Viola's work hit me so strongly is that when you would enter into his work, you didn't actually feel for a moment that you were watching a film. You actually felt you were in the space with something miraculous that was happening, and I really thought they'd achieved something very different with video this way. Then I saw a opera performance at it was at the Walt Disney Opera House in LA. It was Tristan and Isolde. And they had these unbelievably gorgeous Bill Viola videos that were timed with the whole thing, with the live singing. And it was both a really wonderful experience, but it also wasn't nearly as satisfying to me, because there was something disengaged between the overwhelming nature of the video and the fact that it synced up beautifully with the singing. But every time my focus went to the singers, it seemed like a miserable experience for them. And I'm sure that wasn't. They were like completely involved in their singing, they didn't care. But it just didn't feel like it was all working together. There was the video, and then there's did someone just fart? Everything's very loud up here.
very invading.
Actually, you know what, Tony, I'm so glad you brought that up. That is
Yeah.
precisely, I saw it at the Met. That's
Yeah.
one of the things that I thought of where the video was not connecting at all.
And it's tough for me because Viola for me was, is like one of my favorite artists. And, he actually made me think, oh my God, you can't have spiritual art in the digital age. You kind of
Absolutely.
got that to me. But, it's problematic. The way that the audience attention shifts between the projected and the live is something you've just got to be very, very conscious about. I mean, the guys up here, think a lot about them. That's one of the reasons why their work is good. But I think there's a lot of just basically, you're going to basically be given over to the experience of the projection, and if you don't balance it properly. And I really liked Richard's projection works. I thought they were, just because I understood the context and where it was coming from, there was a natural outgrowth of his concerns. I kind of settled into it. But one person kind of did say something, a criticism of it, what I kind of understood. He said, when I used to see a Foreman show, I used to get scared because I felt like I am in the room with these people. This is actually happening to me. And am I going to be able to get out of this theater with my sanity intact? This is a great way of describing how Foreman can really get you if you're open to it. And he said, I didn't feel that fear anymore because I just said, oh, I'm safe. Someone should just turn off the projector. And I'm just sort of interested in what that means for the balance of, when you're incorporating a video or film in performance.
Now we want to do some Q&A.
Yeah, I was wondering if we have about roughly 10 minutes, and I wanted to see if anybody had any questions for people who have been steeped in this stuff. Yeah, front row.
Well, I was interested with what you were saying earlier about, particularly about not being able to have spiritual art and
it wasn't a statement. It was just basically I knew it was possible, but Bill Viola kind of made me feel really confident and secure that I could have a really spiritual connection to a piece of video art, which was very helpful to me.
Absolutely. But what brought to mind to me, which is the question I want to get at actually, is just this idea of liveness, how important that is. And I think one of the chief criticisms about integrating media into performance is actually the more tech you have, the more restrictive it can be for the performer. So I'm curious for all of you artists on stage, is that something that's on your radar? Is it more about how it looks in the end? Where's the boundary for when it starts to become what's the trade-off? What's that balance that we were just talking about?
Oh, well, I always talk about, that there's the liveness of the performer and then the liveness of the technology, and there's this frictive relationship between them, and that's what we're staging. But the main thing I have to say today is that it takes a really strong performer to stand up to it. No, because that's when you often see multimedia where the people lose. If you don't have somebody like Tony on stage or Mo, people who are seasoned hardcore performers, then that part of it, goes to gray. So I think that that's really key, is literally balancing presence.
Because if I could just say, is that I think that there's that it actually makes it very interesting when someone is a very strong performer and also when someone is a very weak performer. But it's the vast middle that I'm not interested in on screen, which is a mean thing to say, but people who aren't supposed to be on camera look so good on camera. But people who really should be on camera, I am bored by.
Yeah.
And then there are these people who I think of them as creatures instead of actors. I mean, Mo and Tony, I'm so sorry that it's very clear that I'm thinking of you guys as creatures instead of actors.
I love to be a creature.
But there's something a little bit caught in the wild about both of your faces on camera that I think is one of the reasons why I want to watch them on camera. Someone who's ready for the camera to be there is boring to me because I see that all the time. Does anybody else have a question? Now I've insulted two people here. Hello.
When you mentioned this, it is a little bit, I'm an opera singer who does these sort of one-person shows that incorporate projections, and it's primarily a musical performance, but projections are very important in terms of we do a lot of subtitles in the projections.
Yeah, that's always an issue, yeah.
And then I also love animation, so I was wondering if you saw the nose at the net, if you have thoughts about that.
Oh, no, I didn't get the chance to see the nose, but I heard some really wonderful things about it, and it seemed like but it also specifically with the work you're doing, I think it's also a question of scale and a question of, like, for example, if you're doing, backdrops so that you could do solo performances, there's sort of a context there that makes it all understandable, and then you go with it. I just felt like basically here, there was, the context is everything. And the context here was basically about, for me, with the Tristan Isolde, was about the live experience losing to the majesty of the images. Did anybody else see the nose? I was very curious
Yeah, I did,
about
I saw it. And I think that's, there's so much there, but, I mean, William Kentridge is brilliant, and his individual animation pieces are like, life-changing. But I thought that the nose was beautiful in many ways, but that the video was completely redundant because it was essentially a backdrop.
An enormous close-up, which you ordinarily can't have, with interchanging actors, so that the performed film, or whatever we call this, that you're seeing is more than just the sum of its parts. In other words, if you just put, like, if you put a Mickey Mouse cartoon, if you put any kind of just something, it's that fight or flight, or I would go to that, and your live performance would be diminished. However, if we've got a camera on you, maybe, and you're really lit, and it's relational, you're developing that triangular relationship, then it's when it works, but that is not.
But it's rare, and it's not seen.
It's something that I know both at a huge scale, and you've got 24 screens or however many you have.
Continuous sitting.
Continuous sitting.
24 screens?
I think it was more than that.
And also, both of you are using, and this is another thing that I think takes away from that flatness, are the reality that we do have so many screen personas now. So you use the flip out screen, you use a live camera, we are seeing each other's screens on computers, and you very much are using that also with the projection screen that was in the example. In other words, you're using the screen as a screen, not as an illusion, not as a backdrop, but as a screen that's affecting your character and is integrated into the story.
So unfortunately, that's 4:45. And but what I would love for us to do is to, if we can, because there is, well, actually, I'm not sure what we're doing in the Elevash lobby next. I should know that. But maybe if we could make the rest of this conversation informal, unmiked, and just outside these doors, that would be lovely. Because we do need to give up the space, but thank you all for being here. Thank you, Marianne Weems. Thank you, Julie Talen. Thank you, Caden. Thank you, Talen. All right, excellent.
Thank you, Helen, for organizing this. I thought this was called the Eyelash Gallery.
Perfect.
You learn something new every day.